Where does the departure of LeBron James leave the Eastern Conference? In pretty good hands, actually, because some of the best teams in the conference should be even better this year. The Boston Celtics, with Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward joining a group that almost reached the finals 2 months ago, would have been the favorite in the East, even if James stayed in Cleveland. The Philadelphia 76ers didn't add a marquee free agent, but still have two of the best young stars in the league, along with a top 5 defense. The Toronto Raptors upgraded from DeMar DeRozan to Kawhi Leonard, assuming the latter is healthy. The Indiana Pacers and Washington Wizards fortified their benches, while the Milwaukee Bucks, Detroit Pistons and Charlotte Hornets, all solid squads, shook things up with coaching changes. Some teams will disappoint, but others will exceed expectations. Here's how we see the East stacking up with most of the summer's business having been taken care of. 1. Boston Celtics. A year ago, the Celtics' story was a lack of continuity, with only 4 guys returning from the team that reached the conference finals in 2017. This year, they're returning 13, including their top 10 guys in regard to minutes played last season. And yet, they're adding Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward to a team that would have reached the finals had it not missed a ton of open jumpers in Game 7 against Cleveland. With the continued development of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they have a plethora of weapons. Still, Al Horford remains their most important player and arguably the best player in the Eastern Conference going into the season, given that he outplayed both Giannis Antetokounmpo and Joel Embiid in the playoffs. 2. Toronto Raptors. We don't know how healthy Leonard is or how engaged he'll be with a team that he didn't want to be traded to. But the Raptors have raised their ceiling and have the ability to put together some really good defensive lineups featuring Leonard and Anunoby at the forward spots. Note that it was on defense where the Raptors collapsed in the playoffs this time. Anunoby and the other young guys should be better, and the offense should continue to evolve under coach Nick Nurse, though it must be noted that DeRozan had a higher assist rate last season, assisting on 18.8% of his possessions than Leonard, career high of 14.6%, has ever had. That they haven't replaced Poltl or re-signed Lucas Nogueira is a sign that they'll be playing plenty of small ball with Serge Ibaka or Pascal Siakam at center. 3. Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers ranked 3rd offensively from the point. March 1, they had both Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova last season. They've replaced Ilyasova with Mike Muscala, a better three-point shooter over the last 3 seasons, though probably a downgrade on defense. Wilson Chandler, meanwhile, gives them additional versatility on the second unit and is obviously a defensive upgrade from Bellinelli, who got torched by the Celtics in the conference semis. But in order to get the most from their 2 number 1 picks, one or both of them will need to be able to shoot from the outside. Fultz and Simmons played a total of just 51 minutes together last season, 0 in the playoffs, and no player in the league will be under the microscope more than Fultz come October. 4. Indiana Pacers. The Pacers were 13.7 points per 100 possessions better with Victor Oladipo on the floor than they were with him off the floor last season. That was the second biggest on-off net differential among 266 players who logged at least 1,000 minutes for a single team. The 8th biggest differential, 11.4 points per 100 possessions, belonged to Evans, who somehow had a positive plus-minus in 1,607 minutes for a team that lost 60 games. Evans replaces Stevenson as the primary playmaker, and McDermott provides some additional shooting for a team that is ranked in the bottom 5 in three-point attempts each of the last 2 seasons. The defense could depend on Miles Turner's ability to take another step forward. 5. Milwaukee Bucks. Budenholzer will surely add more ball movement and player movement to the Bucks' offense, which ranked 16th and 20th in those categories, respectively, last season. And with the additions of Ersan Ilyasova and Brook Lopez, he can put 4 shooters around Giannis Antetokounmpo, who still needs to develop a consistent jumper himself. But this was already a top 10 offensive team, and the bigger question is whether the new coach can take advantage of his roster's length on the other end of the floor. Budenholzer had top 7 defenses in 3 of his 5 years in Atlanta, and defensive improvement in Milwaukee could lead to more Antetokounmpo in the open floor and make this a 50-win team. 6. Washington Wizards. The Wizards had 2 big problems last season. Fixing the first, John Wall missing 41 games, is in the hands of the injury gods. Fixing the second, inconsistency, they lost 15 games to teams that finished with losing records, is in the hands of Austin Rivers and Jeff Green. Even if their production fluctuates, Rivers and Green can do more things than the guys they're replacing on the Washington bench and give coach Scott Brooks some more versatility with his lineups and the ability to play Markieff Morris at the 5 so that he won't necessarily have to rely on Dwight Howard as much as he did on Marcin Gortat. And maybe they'll run some plays for Otto Porter Jr. this year. 7. Detroit Pistons. Casey wants to bring his offensive evolution, more three-point shooting, from Toronto to Detroit, but it remains to be seen if the Pistons can really space the floor with Griffin and Andre Drummond on the floor together. Griffin has seen a huge jump in the percentage of his own shots that have come from three-point range, from 3% in 15-16 to 32% in 17-18, but he's still pretty deliberate with his release, and when he shared the floor with Drummond last season, the team took just 28.5% of its shots, a rate which would have ranked 25th in the league, from beyond the arc. They were more likely to shoot threes and more efficient offensively when either played alongside Tolliver. Casey may need to get creative with his 2 highest-paid players. 8. Miami Heat. Though we still don't know if Dwayne Wade is coming back, the Heat lead the league in continuity, set to return 12 guys who played 94% of the team's minutes last season. They're bringing nearly everybody back, but there's intrigue and room for improvement in regard to the big man rotation. They were at their best with Kelly Olynyk on the floor last season and need to allow Bam Adebayo to take the next step this season. So we'll see what that means for Whiteside, who was a disaster in the playoffs. He played 15 or fewer minutes in 4 of the 5 games and is owed $52.5 million over the next 2 seasons. 9. Cleveland Cavaliers. Kevin Love's contract extension is an indication that the Cavs want to remain competitive. But how competitive they'll be will depend on what kind of defensive team they are. And since James was one of only 2 rotation players they lost, we might determine that he was hurting them on that end of the floor in the regular season, at least. Sexton will get after it, but a 6'2" rookie guard can only make so much of an impact defensively. On the other end, they have 5 of the top 50 three-point shooters over the last 3 seasons, minimum 500 three-point attempts, but not much in regard to creating open looks for those 5 guys. 10. Charlotte Hornets. The Howard trade clears the way for Cody Zeller to get back his old job as starting center. In 2016-17, the Hornets' starting lineup Kemba Walker, Nicholas Batum, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Marvin Williams and Zeller outscored its opponents by 6.0 points per 100 possessions in its 783 minutes together. But with the addition of Howard, and with Zeller playing just 33 games, that lineup played just 18 minutes last season. Of course, new coach James Borrego may make a change on the wing if he wants more offense and if Jeremy Lamb or Malik Monk prove they should start. Kidd-Gilchrist would be the guy to go to the bench, but that doesn't mean that the Hornets don't really need a bounce-back season from Batum. 11. Brooklyn Nets. With small moves around the edges, the Nets have inched toward relevance as they've waited to select a player with their own draft pick, 11 more months to go. But the move with the most variability remains the one that brought Russell to Brooklyn and sent the pick that became Kyle Kuzma to L.A. Russell is entering the last year on his rookie deal, and, though he's shown flashes of brilliance, it's not clear that he'll be the kind of player the Nets want him to be on a consistent basis. There was progress late last season in regard to his shot selection, but there needs to be a lot more on both ends of the floor come October. To a lesser extent, this is an important summer for both Caris LeVert and Jarrett Allen. 12. Chicago Bulls. Will the Bulls' 4th season be their 4th straight season in the bottom 10 on offense? Overall, they were one of 3 teams, the Warriors and Sixers were the others, that ranked in the top 5 in both player movement. They were first in distance traveled per 24 minutes of possession, and ball movement. They were 5th in passes per 24 minutes of possession last season. They were more efficient offensively for the 2 months that they had Zach LaVine, but still ranked 27th offensively over that stretch, and LaVine clearly stifled the ball movement. Now they've added another guy, Jabari Parker, who can be a ball stopper, and Lauri Markkanen should be the primary option. LaVine and Parker should both be better now that they'll be more than 18 months from their ACL tears, but the only player on the Bulls roster who had a true shooting percentage above the league average, 55.6% last season, was Cristiano Felicio, who did it on 215 shots. Markkanen, 55.2%, was close on 862.13. New York Knicks. Knox will keep Knicks fans excited while they await the return of Kristaps Porzingis, which may or may not happen this season. The Knicks will be shopping for a star next summer, but the next 9 months are still critical for Ntilikina, who remains an intriguing prospect with his size at the point guard position. He can defend, but had the worst effective field goal percentage among the 25 rookies who took at least 300 shots last season and averaged just 7.4 drives per 36 minutes, according to SportVU. That ranked 101st among 282 players who averaged at least 15 minutes in 40 or more games and was less than half of what Emmanuel Mudiay averaged, 14.9.14. Orlando Magic. In regard to personnel, the Magic still haven't taken a major step toward ending their 6-year playoff drought, longest in the Eastern Conference. But when Clifford took over in Charlotte 5 years ago, the Bobcats went from 30th to 6th in defensive efficiency. In regard to points allowed per 100 possessions, it was the 9th biggest improvement of the last 40 years. Orlando isn't coming from nearly a bad place, ranked 13th defensively after extracting Elfrid Payton in early February last season, and has some length and athleticism in the frontcourt for Clifford to work with. The Magic retained Aaron Gordon, added Mo Bamba, and will be getting more of Terrence Ross, 24 games last season, and Isaac, 27. If nothing else, this team will be more fun to watch. But the wait for a starting caliber point guard continues. 15. Atlanta Hawks. The development of John Collins' offensive game is important. The big man took 79% of his shots from the inside the paint as a rookie and will look to be more of a perimeter threat this year. Another step forward from Taurean Prince would give the Hawks the kind of player a versatile wing who can make an impact on both ends of the floor every team is looking for. But all eyes will be on the 6'2" young from day one, because most of the league believes that the 6'7" Doncic is the more likely star. Size matters, especially in the backcourt, and Travis Schlenk put his own future on the line with the draft night swap, which also gave the Hawks a future first-round pick.